10. Okay, so for now we have no composition here. I'm going to just talk on specific basics, specific tools. First thing we have been doing so far is that we need the ground, we need the earth, right? So we can cast shadows. So very fast I will create a new plane. I will right click and go under the shaded mode. Nice, and I will right away, before I forget, I will start organizing my work in layers. So I will select the plane, I will go under layer 1, it doesn't really matter, change object layer, and I will rename that to plane or ground, whatever you guys wish. Nice. Second thing, let's create a composition. So very fast I will create a very simple box. Let's create a different geometry like a sphere, because the mapping will be very different in those two geometries. And let's create, I don't know, a triangle or a cone, it doesn't really matter. I just want you to have here different solids. I will place them in a separate layer. Holding shift, you can select multiple objects. So I will right click, change object layer, and rename that to composition. Nice. So let's start. You guys now can follow perfectly. Let's open the options, the Vray options. Let's all go under the output. Who remembers what is the best output to work with when it will? Yeah, the highest, right. And if you need even higher than that, so if you're printing in a bigger size, what can we do? You have to wait a longer time, but it's worth it. So I can change that to the default highest, or I can change the width to 4000 if I want something very, very good quality. So if you have a client and you are rendering for a client, you definitely will need to go in a very high output. But before I change the width, I want to update the height accordingly. So what am I supposed to do? I have a specific ratio I would like to respect. Well, down here we have the ratio. 1.3 is a very good ratio for screen projectors, so I wouldn't go far away from that. So if you manually want to change either the width or the height, make sure you lock the 1.3 ratio. Right now I locked the ratio I had in front of me, which is 2.6. That's not great. So I will unlock, I will go back to 1.3 here. And as you can see, the height now is being updated accordingly, so it follows the ratio. As soon as I'm happy with the ratio, I will lock that ratio, so whatever change I do, the width and height updates accordingly. So that's one thing to have in mind. For now, because we're in class and I don't want to lose time waiting for the rendering, I'm going to go to a very low resolution, so 640. It's fine. You won't do that though. So that's what we have seen so far from this menu. Let's go today and take a look at the difference menu, the environment. So if I go up, there is this tab called environment. And for the first time today, we will assign here a specific skylight that reflects shadows, reflects suns, reflects specific objects that they are part of this skylight. So who has worked in other programs like 3D Studio Max, for example, with HDRIs? Yeah? So since we are not familiar, I will go on Blackboard, content, assignments, and assignment number 10. This is what you guys have to work on for next week. Is it here? No, 10 is what you have to work for next week. Can you guys see it on your own Blackboard? Did I forget to attach the file? It's very possible that I forgot it. Yeah, you can see it. Assignment 10. So since you guys can see it, can you give me the definition of HDRI? You can read that. If you open assignment 10 PDF. Okay, so sorry, I forgot to attach the PDF. I will do it right after. So over there I give a definition of HDRI. We can definitely go under Wikipedia and find that, so we know what we are talking about. HDRI stands for High Dynamic Range Imaging. I keep forgetting, of course. And let's read a little bit. It's a set of techniques used in imaging and photography to reproduce a greater dynamic range of luminosity than possible. So HDRI images, you will see, they look normal, like normal images, but they have specific colors that they will be reflected as part of your dome. The more you start using them, the more you will realize their effect. So I propose that you download free HDRIs from internet. So you go here and you say HDRI free. You will find many websites that can give you free images like this one. So these are very simple files, raster files. You will realize that they have very, very big vision, okay? So they work with a huge perspective, more like a fish eye rather than a human eye. And also they have these intense colors. I have already downloaded some of them, so I'm not going to lose your time here. You can do it manually, and I will upload on Blackboard too some of them, but I want you to familiarize with free downloads from internet. So where do we place this HDRI? We place it under the skylight, right? This is going to be our dome now. Our dome is going to have specific colors, and it's going to also be distorted in order to simulate a little bit the reality of reflections we get out of a sun. So if I click here on this small m that stands for material and right now is empty, a new window will pop up, a texture editor window, and we want to import basically a bitmap. So I just scrolled down, I went under bitmap, and now I'm gonna go into my folders. Here I can see somebody else used an HDRI. I can see this is the file, but I will go to the folders. I have a few of them that I know they work very nicely. Oopsie. Let's wait a bit because it's crashing. While I'm waiting, you guys can download something from online. Just HDRI for free. Download any image. Yeah, the bigger you go, the more time it's going to take, but obviously you want the biggest, right? The biggest quality you can find. Yeah?
What about if I take the picture by myself?
Well, you won't be able to.
No?
No. So as you saw HDRI images, they have this fisheye. You can create your own HDRI in Photoshop by basically taking lots of pictures and creating more like a big view over there. Right. They are panoramic, but they have also a color treatment. Yeah. So you can do your own panoramic image and try that. But I think it's going to take too much time. So right now I'm crashing, so I will just end task and I will restart my program. So that's a good chance for you guys to download something. Okay, here we go. And I'm starting from scratch, very fast. I will create a plane. Strange way I took. I will assign the plane in a new layer. This plane has to be flipped, of course. Very fast, I create again 3 objects of different geometry. Oops. Let's delete that. Let's create a new cone. It seems that my ground is tiny, so using my gumball, holding shift, I will make the ground bigger. And here I am. Okay, so I go again under my options menu. If you guys don't have the Vray tools as part of your screen, as I don't right now, you can right click, show toolbar, scroll all the way down, and you can find the new Vray for Rhino. Oh, I had it already. Yeah. And here you have the menu. So we were under options, environment, and I was trying to load under the skylight a specific map. So I went under the bitmap option, and let's try to find HDRI files. Okay, so this is how the file looks like. If you see right now in my screen, it has this .htr as file type. This is any file like that will be good for you. You will realize that there are many out there and they do different things. So it depends on your composition. If you want your composition to be darker, evening, night, bright in the morning, then you have to choose a proper HDRI too. So I just download that from internet, right? Yeah. So I went under this M, which stands for material. Just click there, a new browser will pop up, a new window will pop up. You have to choose text bitmap under the preview mode. So you are basically loading a bitmap, and then a new window to your browser will pop up where you have to select a file. Now you can see the file and the file path up here where my mouse is pointing out right now. You can see the name of the file, and also with those 3 dots you can go right away to the path of where the file is located. Okay, so as soon as I realize that this is loaded, you can also preview. I'm not going to do it now because usually it takes so much time and I don't want to crash again the file. I will say OK. And what I propose you guys do is that you always play a little bit with importing the exact same HDRI under background, reflection, and refraction. If you place it under background, when you render, you will be able to see the actual image. Most of the times you don't want that, so first make the mistake. So I will do that together with you. I will repeat the exact same steps. Make sure you load the same HDRI, okay? So now both under skylight and background I have the M as capital, which means I have assigned a material, a bitmap. And you can go and say I need reflections and I need refractions, and they will also borrow the exact same image in order to be generated. So I'm just repeating the steps. I load the same bitmap in all of those menus. Okay. So very fast I will render and see what this HDRI is. Are you guys rendering at the same time or you're falling behind somehow? Yeah. Yeah? So I will repeat. Now you can see this image is very dark and it has some kind of materials, although I never assign materials, right? So I will close the image, or basically I will save it so I have it as a reference. And I will go back to my menu. I will get rid of one of them. So here I will say none. Under the skylight, so I lost my HDRI. Okay, them now is not capital anymore, it's small. And why not, I will try to render again. So Vray is a little bit annoying because we have to wait all of this time to see the differences, and this is going to be annoying for you guys too home. So here what is happening is that the background is not anymore this dark gray that was part of my image, is black as we know it. So if I save as PNG now, this black zone is going to be transparent. On the other hand, if I would save as PNG in the previous option where I had an actual HDRI as background, then this it wouldn't have been transparent. I will go ahead and I will add some reflectivity in the ball. You guys all know how to add reflection in the ball. So we can see now what is going to be reflected. What is our skylight? Basically, what is this HDRI image we have been loading so far? So I will go very fast to my material editor and I will create a new material, a standard one. I will call that sphere. And here I will right click and I will say create a reflection. So right away I have a reflection layer, a new reflection layer. It's not very high, but if I render again, I think it's going to give me a little bit more information on the actual sky we have loaded. Obviously, it's going to take more time. So it's hard to see in the projector. Maybe I have to increase the reflection. Who remembers how can I increase the reflection? Have you guys talked about that? Reflection. So already I have a layer of reflection that I added the way you have been doing so far. And I want to change the reflection number. So reflection works again with materials. If I go under the M of the reflection, you will see that by default I have a Fresnel reflection logged in. By default, this Fresnel is always 1.55. But if we want to increase this amount, this number, and we want to go up to 10, then we will realize that our object will be more like a chrome effect, more like a mirror rather than a small reflective object. So if I change the IOR, which means index of refractions, this stands for that, this number to 8 till 20, this is going to create a mirror effect. Every time you change the index of refractions, you definitely want to update the refraction of index of refractions. So those two numbers go together. So if I change that to 10, I will change this one to 10 too. And I will try to render again. Instead of me waiting for the whole scene to render, I will do this small trick. I will just right click, and please do it together with me, even if you don't have the HDRIs loaded. Right click under the R, and here read carefully. It says select rectangle in viewport to render. So now I'm able to select specific area that is going to be rendered only. So instead of waiting for the whole render again, I right click under the render button and I selected a specific window. As you can see now, the window is only here for me rendered. So nothing really changes. Why? What did I didn't do correctly?
There's no light.
Well, no, basic things. I created a material, I called it sphere, but I never assigned the material. Yeah? So, okay, I have been working so meticulously and I forgot something simple. So I will right click and say apply material to selection. So I connect the actual material with my scene. I will right click again and I will render. I really hope that this will have better results right now. So nice. I can already see that this is more like reflective. I can see the cube that is next to it. So the chrome effect worked nicely for me. Still, everything is kind of bluish though. Why is that? Because of my HDRI. So let's go ahead and see if we delete this HDRI, what is the difference in our scene? So let's go back to options and let's get rid of that from text bitmap. Let's go back to known. And let's render. Not a window, just a simple rendering because it's not going to take us much time this time. It doesn't have to do calculations anymore. That's why I go back to the overexposed scene of mine that has no character. There is nothing really to be reflected here apart from this cube that is right next to my ball. So before, as you noticed, you were able to reflect over there this bluish tone of my HDRI. Now you cannot reflect anything. You can reflect only this black background that is there by default. So this whole black area is obviously the black background. Before I had an actual image that was reflected. You guys see the difference? Yeah? So the HDRI is something that I highly recommend. The problem is that you have to now experiment a lot with what kind of image you want to load in. My image was probably kind of toned down, it was evening image, so I got a very dark scene. Before you go ahead and say that that's it, try to see the difference of HDRIs that they are yellows versus HDRIs that they are blue. They will give very, very different results. Do you guys have already something different? Did any of you do HDRI rendering? No? So would you like me to repeat? Yeah, it's much. Can we see Danny? It's a little bit brighter. It's a little bit brighter. So Danny has a result over there like mine. His is a little bit more like morning type without even setting up a light as we have been doing so far, without changing the light properties. And it has already some type of reflections and reflections over there. Questions on the HDRI? Yes. Oh, nice, Ellie. Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, yeah. So Ellie got a very, Ellie, do you want to place that up? She got a very greenish image because also his HDRI, it's green. So this is her image and this is her rendering. Can you see the image? Now, you guys all try not to apply, like earlier I saw you have only applied the HDRI under the skylight. If you place it under background, you will see it there. It's going to be part of your scene, so you will see this forest this image has. Okay? If I go back and apply my HDRI as a background, and of course as a skylight, I really want all of these to update at the same time so I get similar reflections. If I render back, as you can see, my background is now this bluish thing that is borrowing the HDRI tone. It's not anymore black. So you guys make sure that you don't want, if you don't want a background, you make sure that you don't place it there as an N. But first try and see what works for you the best. So already just with using that, a successful HDRI, you don't really need lots of lights, right? You already get some kind of shadows set up for you. Now my recommendation is that we are not lazy. We go ahead and also direct our sun so we understand how the shadows will be casted in a specific degree that the sun hits our component, our composition. I will get rid of the HDRI because it takes too much time, so I don't want to wait. And I would propose you guys do the same if you want to follow me. You like what you got? It's different. Yeah, the image is in the back. So you guys may want to take a look at blue screen. Nita, you're very far away, I know, but yeah, he can see the image. Of course, in the background, you don't want it, but he can see the image reflected on the ball too. You had a more successful image than mine, I have to say, right? So I guess that the three of you had a better image than mine, and I spent so much time searching for it. So yeah, that's good. Save that so you can share it with the class after if they ask. Okay, so let's move on. From this point on, what we will be doing apart from output is working a lot with the skylight and the idea of HDRI. If you want the skylight to be a background too, go ahead and place the same image under the background. I propose you don't do that, right? I propose you have just a black background or white background that you will then get rid of in Photoshop. So I'm going to close this options menu and I will go back to my material editor. Already we have touched upon the idea of reflection, and I just want to make sure that you, because I went a little bit fast, I know you already know how to right click and say create a new layer that is going to be reflective, but now make sure that you go under the layer menu, which is always here on the right side, and under the general attributes, go under the M if the M is not capital, click here, and a very similar window will pop up. By default, you work with Fresnel, right? And Fresnel by default is 1.55. If you want your image, your component, your composition to be mirror, as we said, you increase the IOR. This is going to take more time for the render to happen, obviously. Every time you increase the IOR, you want to update with the same exact number, the refract of index of refractions. So those two sums work at the same time together. I can go back now to my default settings. Yeah, it takes some time to preview. And now I'm in that same page that you guys have been the last 8 weeks. You just add the layer and you don't change the layer to be chrome or mirror. Let's move next now. So far we haven't really assigned any texture mapping in any object we have been working with. So right now this sphere has a diffuse color that is gray, and we want to basically apply here another map, let's say a concrete map or a stone map or whatever else, whatever texture you may want. The logic is exactly same, right? You go online and you start Googling. There is a huge library out there. As soon as you, of course, Google more and more, you will save images and you will create your own library. So if I Google here concrete maps, and you go under images, you will find a very big library of different concrete. Other ones are tiled, some others are more like dirty, some others are polished. According to your needs, you can download. What I propose is that you filter a little bit your search. So I propose that for whatever you do online. If you want to use any image as a background, as a sky, or a landscape for your renderings, then go under the search tools, under the size, and make sure that you work with large sizes images. So you don't download pixelated images that they will harm your renderings or your Photoshop images. So now that I'm under the large, I can download any of those maps and I can save it. So you guys do so you can use any of those. The logic is the same. Instead of concrete, you can say here aluminum, texture maps, and you will get this kind of surfaces, glossy and aluminum based. Dirt maps, this is another type of maps I like using for more abstract, let's say, results. So go ahead and download one of those. Let's all go under the diffuse of this sphere, and instead of having the empty, which means no material, let's click here and let's load a specific image. So if you load it from online a JPEG, you're in a very good track. Either JPEG or PNG will work for you guys. I'm not sure that TIFF works, so this is something for us to take a look into. So if you scroll down and again select texture bitmap, because you're working with a bitmap, the browser of course will pop out, and you can come here and find the image you saved. I'm going to load any concrete that I have in my library. I will say OK, but before I say OK, I will just take a very quick look at this menu. This menu seems that it's going to be a helpful menu for me to start tiling this mapping on top of my composition. So here I can repeat the map more than one times in U and V, X and Y. I can offset the mapping, I can mirror the mapping, I can rotate the mapping. So keep that in mind. Today we won't work with this menu, we will work with a better menu according to my opinion. It takes more time, but it's more accurate. So for now we'll leave that as a default. These are the defaults of your actual JPEG file, which is concrete based. I will say OK here. And let's see what we did. This sphere has reflectivity and has also concrete map. Is this good? Is this okay? I don't think so, right? Because concrete, the one that I also chose wasn't a polished one, it was a dirty. So let's go ahead and get rid of the reflection completely. I can remove the layer. And let's keep it clean. We only have a bitmap. If you go under the render mode, you can see a little bit what happened in your scene. So already I have this texture map applied in my sphere, and this is how it will look like if I attempt to render. Let's move the sphere a little bit upwards so we see clearly. It looks good, it looks okay. So I will apply the exact same mapping to the other two objects. So I will select them and I will right click and I will say apply material to selection. And here is where the problems basically start. Why I say that the problem starts? Maybe you can see it better in your screen, but I think also through the projector we get an idea of what goes wrong. Maybe in this triangle things are not great.
So the edges don't line up?
Right. So the edges don't match. The pixelation is a matter of the image. If the image is very pixelated, this is the problem. So what happened here is closer to what Lewis is trying to say. It is pixelated because the image is stretched. So the image is distorted in order to fit this very strange shape. It seems that it looked okay when it came to the sphere or the box, semi-good, but here it has hard time. That's why when we apply any texture map, we want to go under the properties of the object, and according to the shape of the object, we need to there scale down, scale up, rotate accordingly, and map accordingly our texture. So I will select this object and I will go under the properties menu. And instead of sticking to the object properties, I will go all the way to the texture mapping menu. So I will click this small button. And here you can see you have many visuals that try to simulate how your geometry looks like. So if you have a plane, maybe you want to go ahead and say apply planar mapping. If you have boxy, this is where you are. If you have a spherical component, this is where you are. So I always start with, if I have an object that I don't know exactly what it is, I start with the box mapping, and then I will take it from this point on. So apply box mapping. Now I have to read carefully. What is the first corner of your base? So here I can either customize my map in order to fit this specific triangle, or I can say take this map and make it fit to the bounding box of the object. You guys all remember what is the bounding box? Kevin, do you remember? The bounding box. It's basically a box that inside contains exactly any type of geometry you have generated. So even if you have a very crazy surface, as you remember, if you type bounding box, this surface will be enclosed inside a box. And let's do it together. I will escape and I will select that and I will type bounding box, the command we have seen. And here I will say enter to accept the word coordinate system. And this is my box. Let's go under shaded. So here I have enclosed any geometry inside the box. So by going there under the box mapping and say yes, apply this map to the actual bounding box that is here by default, or apply it in a diagonal way, or vertically, or using 3 points. These are different options I get for my mapping. So I will say enter to accept the bounding box. And always you want to work with the word plane unless you have changed C-planes. We haven't really talked on how we change C-planes. It's an easy thing, but since we haven't touched on it, let's all work with the word plane. Enter. And now you can see the bounding box and also how the arrows of the UV look like. Do you want the box to be capped or not? So as you can see, you can enter into very, very big detail here. I will say cap. Accept that. I will go under my rendered, and this is what I get. It's not anymore distorted, it just looks a little bit rotated, I would say. So if I select the object again, for the first time now, I have all of these options that I can work with. So here we go back to the idea of I want to offset this texture map in X, Y, or Z, or I want to repeat it, or I want to rotate it. So if I start rotating that, let's say 30 degrees and enter, already you can see a change in my mapping. If I say 90, here what happens, right? I'm trying to rotate 90 degrees and the mapping doesn't work correctly. So if I want to repeat, let me control Z here. Respectively, if I want to repeat this map 100 times, and if I zoom in a lot here, you will realize that my map is trying to fit inside this bounding box 100 times. So here is the menu for me to start resizing the object, repeating, offsetting, or rotating the map on the object. Let's do the same for this box. So I will select the box, I will go under the properties, and I will make sure that I'm under the texture mapping. Now it's easy for me, I will apply a box mapping, and I will respect the bounding box, so enter in everything. And already my map changed and is less distorted. It's much, much better. I can change from the box to box sides only, and this is what happens. So I said, yes, apply as a box, but don't respect the top and the bottom. Go only in the sides. So I think that this works better, no? If I go under spherical, the map tries now to adjust into a sphere, which is not going to work. Let's do the same for the sphere. This time, instead of box, I will say sphere, and I will accept the bounding box of the sphere, and here is what I get. Obviously happier because now my map follows this focal central point of the ball. So we had so far a very easy map, the concrete map. If I go ahead and change this map to something that has tiles, this is where bigger problems will start. So I go back to my sphere, I clicked under the diffuse, the capital M, and I will change that to this natural maple object. Nice. The box looks perfect. This looks really horrific because I have increased a lot the size, not the size, the repetition. And the sphere tries, but of course it's not going to work perfectly. How can we improve a little bit the sphere? Probably by repeating more times in UV and W the mapping. So if here I change that to 50 by 50, of course. Yeah, not great either. Maybe the 50 was too much. So let's try 10. Yeah, better.
It's still feeling like a picture. It's still feeling like it is a picture. How you make like come out like 3D or something. Anyway, somehow.
So, so right now we're not rendering, right? So we don't have any sun or any shadows happening. I'm just under the render mode, just because I have to economize my time. As soon as you have reflectivity in one of your planes and the sun, and if you want, you can, according of course to your material, you can add some bump
Yes.
there, then you will get a more realistic effect. But now we're in the very beginning of the process. I just want you guys to familiarize a lot with the idea of how you mark perfectly. So already the sphere started very bad, and I think it looks better, no? Do you guys agree? So make sure that you change the mapping according through the properties menu. Do you have questions on that? I think that's the most important thing. Most of the problems come when you don't texture map correctly. Should I move on? Is it clear to everybody, or you guys have questions? Nita over there, is it clear? Yeah. So let's go ahead and respond a little bit. We will go to this next step that is called, okay, we have a material under the diffuse. We know how to add reflectivity at the same time, or even make the object very reflective like a mirror. What if we want to add something like a bump, no? What if we want to make this a little bit more irregular when it comes to planar conditions? So let's go ahead and simulate water, which I believe, it's the very first example that we can talk about. So if this surface down here, the plane was water for whatever reason, it should have the watery material, the watery color, but most importantly, it should have the behavior of movement. So it cannot be flat. I will go to my layers, I will unlock the plane, I will select the plane, I will create a new material over here. So right click, create material standard, and let's call that water. And apply material to selection. Okay. So there are many ways that we can go through that. Let's start simple, and I think simple is also the simplest way is the more powerful. So water, we can select color for the water. For now, something bluish, and the water is also transparent, no? And most of the times it's also reflective. Do you guys know the difference between refraction and reflection? Is the water reflective? Is it refractive? Yeah? Would you? Both? It's both. Can you make probably a diagram for us? No? Maybe this is hard. I'm sure you guys know from the physics.
Because the water is stored in images. Is that correct?
So this is the surface of my water, no? And whatever surface is reflective, like a mirror, for example, then the sun comes as rays, no? So it has direction. This is my sun, and this is how the rays of my sun will come. Heat, right? Heat the plane. So for the first time, we can right click here and now say that this is indeed also a refractive material. So instead of reflection, I will also add refraction. You will see that the difference are very slight. So very, very professional renderings would go ahead and spend time into changing the refractive menus. But for sure, we can add both of those now. Okay, did we assign material? Let's select apply material. Oops. Apply material to selection. Let's try to render and see what we did. Okay, so this is reflective, we can see already, but definitely this is not a water. This is just a blue surface that looks like a glass mainly, rather than water. So let's go ahead and change that. So Hito said water is a bit bumpy. So we will go ahead and we will scroll down and we will see that there are different maps we can add to this menu. If you go under the bump menu and say yes, I want to add bump and click under the material, here you can go under the texture bitmap. You will see that there are many default images that you can use. So I know that the noise works nicely. So you either here load your own bitmap that should be black and white. We will see how it should look. Or you go ahead, you scroll down till you find a map that works nicely for the kind of map you want to achieve. So texture noise, I will preview that. This is how this looks like. If I go under texture rock, this is probably what I would assign if I was dealing with rocks that they are not polished at all. You have checker, that is very characteristic. Checker is not going to work for us right now, of course, because it's going to see the values of black, see the values of white, and will start creating bumps according to this checkerboard. And this is very uniform to be water. So let's go under the noise, preview that. Let's say OK. And here I can change the value from 1 to something more intense even. And let's render. I will right click, or okay, I will render from scratch just to see the difference. Can you guys see the effect? Are you rendering at the same time? I don't know if you can see in my screen clearly. Yeah. Okay, can I close it? Yeah. So, do you like that? Do you think it's good? Could it be better? What doesn't go great here with this map? I mean, it's pretty close. The problem is that the noise is very, very dense. So the waves are tiny, no? They are not as good. In that case, and now that we understand that the noise or the texture map that is related to bump works with black and white tones, you can either create your own one, or you can go online again. I googled noise texture maps, and I do think that a map that looks like this one that has bigger areas of gray and bigger areas of black will work better. So my waves are not going to be that tiny as this one. This is closer to what we got. So again, it's a matter of you downloading and experimenting with the correct image, right? So I only used a default. Let me save this image and try this one, why not? Just to see the different effect, because it has a very, very different scale. So I'm going back to my material editor. All the way down, if you scroll, you will find the maps menu. You want to work with bump. If you click under the M, make sure now that you are under the bitmap because you want to load your own image. So texture bitmap, and I think I saved under desktop now. Ooh. I think I'm crashing again. So since the other one is thinking, I will perform the exact same steps here. So this is just for you to be also fearless. If something goes wrong, what can we do, right? Very fast you jump into another file. So this is my water. And my water needs to have a bump map. So I will go here under bitmap and I will make sure that I load the one that I downloaded. So let's see what was the name. Okay, so seamless was the name. I'm loading that and I will change the color to something bluish. I will add my reflection and I will add my refraction too, and I'm ready to render. Didn't work. You can, since you have most of you, you can increase the bump from 1 to 10 and see how would that look. Do not attempt to render everything. So just right click and select a specific portion. And now you will see how big of a difference it makes. So my one wasn't as intense because the image I chose was very grayish. It wasn't black and white really. But now as soon as I bump up the number from 1 to 10, you can see that I get a more realistic view for the water. So try to bump up a little bit the one to something more increased so you get this dirtiness that I get here. So Hito, to your question, here you can see maps that they work with bumps and also they work with displacement. They both take as input bitmaps, which means JPEG or PNG files that they are black and white. So the program recognizes black values and the program makes them being like a valley, and white values is more like height field that makes them be exaggerated like a slope, okay? The displacement, it's pretty similar to the bump. It's going to take more memory, and you will see that with the displacement we'll get actual extrusion of the plane. I'm not going to attempt displacement right now because already we're running late. I will keep it for next week though. But for now I think you have 2-3 important steps. You have the idea of mapping, which is the one I want you to work with. You have the idea of bumping. But most importantly, you have the idea of HDRI as a skylight, as an environment. This doesn't mean that you won't place your sun. You will always need to place a directional sun over there. So next week what I will do, I will talk a lot about the light, the directional sun properties, because you can get very, very different results if you change a little bit the properties of the sun. And also I will show how the transparency can work for you, work with you in order to create figures as part of your rendering. So how you can have the figure inside your composition, giving a shadow instead of placing it in Photoshop. We usually prefer Photoshop when it comes to secondary elements like figures, like silhouettes. But if you have in first plane somebody walking, like if you want to render realistically an airport, and you have 100 people you want to throw in there, no? The first the five that are in front of you, you will probably render them. The rest, you will start importing them as very realistic silhouettes in Photoshop. So we will see both of the techniques next week, okay? Do you guys have questions for those 3 things we kind of talked about today? No? So shift